What happens when a single cruel joke at a family BBQ leads to the end of a marriage? How can a husband, publicly humiliated and dismissed by his wife, quietly and lawfully dismantle the life they built together? The night I laughed at him in front of everyone, I thought I'd won, until the legal papers landed on my kitchen table. The smell of charcoal and barbecue sauce filled the air in Judith Voll's backyard as I adjusted my sundress and surveyed the family gathering. It was one of those perfect Saturday afternoons in June, the kind where everyone pretends to be having a wonderful time while tensions simmer just beneath the surface. I watched my husband Bram flip burgers at the grill, his quiet demeanor irritating me more than usual. He'd been distant lately, buried in his engineering projects and barely acknowledging my needs. At 33, I deserved better than a man who treated me like a roommate. "Lysandra, honey, come sit with us," called my mother-in-law Judith from the patio table. Her tone was polite but strained, the way it had been since our last family dinner, when I'd made some perfectly reasonable comments about Bram's lack of ambition. "In a minute," I replied, my attention caught by Colby Harker near the drinks table. He looked good in his polo shirt, his arms tanned from weekend golf. Colby worked in my HR department and had been increasingly attentive during our coffee breaks. Unlike Bram, he actually listened when I talked about my frustrations. "Mum, why does Daddy look sad?" 7-year-old Ivy tugged at my dress, her brown eyes wide with concern. "He's not sad, sweetheart. Daddy's just being his usual boring self," I said, loud enough for the nearby adults to hear. A few uncomfortable glances were exchanged, but I didn't care. If Bram wanted to sulk, that was his problem. My mother Gloria laughed from her lawn chair. "Oh, Lysandra, you're terrible. But honestly, men can be so dramatic about every little thing." Bram's sister Mara shot me a sharp look. Maybe we should talk about something else. But I was just getting started. The wine had loosened my tongue, and I was tired of tiptoeing around everyone's feelings. "You know what's funny?" I announced to the gathering, my voice carrying across the yard. "Bram keeps talking about wanting another baby, but honestly, I don't think he has it in him anymore." The conversation died. Even the sizzling from the grill seemed to quiet. "Lysandra," Judith said quietly, "perhaps—" "No, really," I continued, emboldened by what I thought was attention. "I mean, look at him. When's the last time he actually made an effort? He'd never get me pregnant again, not the way things are going." I laughed, a sound that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Bram's hand stilled on the grill spatula. His back was to me, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. Good. Maybe now he'd realize what he was losing. "That's enough," Mara said firmly, standing up from her chair. "Oh, come on, it's just the truth," I said, feeling defensive now. "We're all adults here. Marriage isn't all sunshine and roses, right? Sometimes you have to be honest about these things." Colby shifted uncomfortably by the drinks table, suddenly very interested in his beer bottle. I caught his eye and gave him a meaningful look. At least someone here understood what I was going through. Bram finally turned around. His face was calm, almost eerily so. "Ivy, why don't you go inside and wash your hands for dinner?" "But Daddy—" "Go ahead, sweetheart." His voice was gentle with our daughter, but his eyes when they met mine were cold as winter steel. "Bram, I started, but he'd already turned back to the grill. The rest of the family sat in uncomfortable silence. Judith looked like she might cry. Mara was openly glaring at me. Even my mother seemed to realize she should probably stop laughing. "Well, this is awkward," I said, trying to salvage the situation with humor. "Can't a wife joke about her husband anymore?" "That wasn't a joke," Judith said quietly. "That was cruel." "Oh, please, you people are so sensitive. Bram knows I don't mean anything by it." But even as I said it, I felt a flutter of uncertainty, the way he'd looked at me. Bram began loading the finished burgers onto a platter. "Dinner's ready," he announced to the group, his voice perfectly polite and completely empty. As everyone moved toward the food table, I noticed Colby hanging back. He approached me with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Rough crowd tonight," he said quietly. "Tell me about it. You'd think I'd committed murder instead of making one little comment." He glanced around nervously. "Maybe you should, smooth things over with Bram." "Why?" "He'll get over it. He always does." I moved closer to Colby, enjoying the way his cologne mixed with the barbecue smoke. Some of us just need more excitement in our lives, you know? Colby's grin widened, and he gave me a subtle wink before walking away. At least someone appreciated me. I turned to find Bram watching me from across the yard. He was holding Ivy's hand, helping her with her plate, but his eyes were fixed on me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something calculating and final. The party continued around us, but the easy family atmosphere was gone. Conversations were stilted, laughter forced. I tried to rejoin different groups, but people seemed to drift away from me. Even my mother looked uncomfortable. "I think we should probably head home soon," I announced to no one in particular. "Good idea," Mara said immediately. As we gathered our things, I overheard Judith speaking quietly to Bram near the back door. "Honey, you don't have to put up with—" "It's fine, Mom," he interrupted. "Really, everything's going to be fine." But it wasn't fine. I could feel it in the way he helped Ivy into her car seat without speaking to me, in the silence that filled our car during the drive home, in the way he went straight to his study when we got to the house. I'd wanted to shake him up, to make him pay attention to me. Instead, I had the unsettling feeling that I'd crossed a line I hadn't even known was there. That night, as I lay in our bed scrolling through text messages from Colby, I told myself I'd done nothing wrong. Bram was overreacting, just like always. He'd come around. I had no idea that in his study downstairs, my husband was making notes in a leather journal, documenting everything that had happened that evening with the methodical precision of the engineer he was. The clock on my nightstand read 11:47 p.m. when I finally heard his footsteps on the stairs. But instead of coming to bed, he went to the guest room. For the first time since the barbecue, I felt a real stab of worry. I woke up alone on Sunday morning, sunlight streaming through curtains that Bram usually opened for me. The guest room door was closed, and I could hear the shower running in the hallway bathroom. He'd never spent a full night away from our bed before, not even during our worst arguments. Downstairs, I found him in the kitchen making coffee, already dressed in his weekend clothes. He looked up when I entered, his expression polite but distant. "Good morning," he said, as if I were a house guest he barely knew. "Bram, about yesterday," I started, but he was already moving past me toward the stairs. "I'm going to wake Ivy. We're going to the Science Museum." "We?" "Ivy and I." He paused at the bottom of the staircase. "You're welcome to come if you'd like." The careful courtesy in his voice was somehow worse than yelling would have been. "Of course I want to come. She's my daughter too." He nodded once and continued upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, my phone buzzing with a text from Colby. "Hope you survived the family drama. Want to grab coffee Monday and debrief?" I smiled despite my frustration. At least someone was thinking about me. The museum trip was a disaster. Bram was attentive and playful with Ivy, but he treated me like a stranger. When I tried to join their conversations about the exhibits, he would nod politely and then redirect his attention to our daughter. Other families probably thought we were divorced and doing some awkward co-parenting visit. "Daddy, why aren't you talking to Mommy?" Ivy asked as we stood in front of the dinosaur display. "Daddy's just tired, sweetheart," I answered before Bram could respond. You know how he gets when work is stressful. Bram's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Actually, work's been fine. I'm just thinking about some things I need to take care of." "What kind of things?" I pressed, but he was already leading Ivy toward the next exhibit. That evening, after Ivy was in bed, I cornered him in his study. He was sitting at his desk with his laptop open, several manila folders spread around him. "We need to talk," I said, closing the door behind me. About what? He didn't look up from his screen. About yesterday. About you being weird and cold all day. About you sleeping in the guest room. I'm not being weird. I'm being thoughtful. Thoughtful about what? Finally, he looked at me. About what kind of marriage we actually have, Lysandra. About what kind of wife publicly humiliates her husband in front of his family. I felt my temper flare. Oh, please, I made one little joke. You're acting like I committed adultery or something. Something flickered in his eyes. Is that what it would take? Adultery? What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Forget I said anything. He turned back to his laptop. I moved closer, trying to see what he was working on, but he minimized the window. What are you doing? Research. Research for what? A project. His phone buzzed and he glanced at it briefly before setting it face down on the desk. Since when do you get texts this late on Sunday? Since I started having a life outside this house. The words were quiet but sharp as a blade. I stared at him. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm tired of being treated like a failure in my own home. It means I'm tired of being the butt of your jokes. It means I'm tired of feeling like I have to apologize for existing. Bram, that's not... Isn't it? He stood up, closing the laptop. When's the last time you said something positive about me? To me or to anyone else? I opened my mouth to argue, then realized I couldn't immediately think of an answer. We've been going through a rough patch. All couples do. A rough patch. He repeated the words like they tasted bitter. Is that what you call it? My phone buzzed with another text from Colby. I glanced at it automatically, and Bram noticed. Popular tonight, he observed. It's just work stuff. On Sunday night? Some of us have demanding jobs, Bram. Not everyone gets to work regular 9 to 5 hours like you. Right, of course. He picked up his folders and moved toward the door. I'm going to finish this upstairs. In the guest room? Yes. How long are you planning to sleep in there? He paused in the doorway. I don't know yet. I'm still figuring some things out. After he left, I sat in his desk chair, feeling unsettled. This wasn't like Bram. He didn't do dramatic gestures or silent treatments. He was steady, predictable, sometimes maddeningly calm. This cold politeness was something new. I opened my phone and scrolled through Colby's messages. He was funny, flirtatious, everything Bram wasn't being right now. When he suggested meeting for coffee, I found myself typing back, yes, definitely. I could use a friendly face. His response came immediately. Poor thing, husband still giving you the cold shoulder. Something like that. He's being impossible. His loss. See you tomorrow at 10? Our usual place? I hesitated for just a moment, then typed, perfect, can't wait. Upstairs, I could hear Bram moving around in the guest room, the quiet sounds of someone settling in for the night. Part of me wanted to go to him, to try to fix whatever was broken between us. But a larger part was angry that I had to be the one to fix it. I'd made one comment at a family barbecue. He was the one turning it into a federal case. I got ready for bed alone, the king-size mattress feeling enormous and cold. Through the wall, I could hear the faint sound of Bram's voice. Was he on the phone? At this hour? I pressed my ear to the wall but couldn't make out words. After a few minutes, the talking stopped. My phone lit up with one final message from Colby. Sweet dreams, beautiful. Tomorrow will be better. I smiled and set the phone on my nightstand. At least someone appreciated me. At least someone was looking forward to spending time with me. If Bram wanted to sulk and punish me for one moment of honesty, that was his choice. But I wasn't going to sit around begging for forgiveness. I had done nothing wrong. In the guest room, Bram's light stayed on until well past midnight. Monday morning brought no improvement in the Arctic climate of our house. Bram was already gone when I woke up, though he'd left coffee made and Ivy's lunch packed. The efficiency of it felt like a rebuke. Look how well the household runs without your input. I dropped Ivy at school, noting how she kept asking why Daddy had left so early. He has important work to do, I told her, which was probably true. Bram always threw himself into his engineering projects when he was upset. The HR office buzzed with Monday morning energy, and I felt my mood lift as soon as I walked in. This was my domain, where I was respected and valued. Colby was waiting by my desk with a coffee from the good cafe down the street. "Thought you might need this," he said with that charming smile. "You looked pretty stressed yesterday." "You're an angel," I said, accepting the cup gratefully. "I don't know what I did to deserve such a thoughtful friend." "Friend?" He raised an eyebrow playfully. I was hoping for a promotion from that title. I felt a flutter of excitement mixed with nervousness. "Colby, I know, complicated situation, but life's too short to be miserable, don't you think?" Before I could respond, my colleague Jennifer approached with a stack of files. "Morning, Lysandra. How was your weekend?" "Oh, you know how family barbecues go," I said with a laugh. "Sometimes you remember why you married into the family. Sometimes you wonder what you were thinking." Jennifer looked uncomfortable. "Well, I hope things work out." As she walked away, Colby leaned closer. "Trouble in paradise?" "Bram's just being sensitive about some silly comment I made. He'll get over it." I sipped my coffee, enjoying the warmth and the attention. Men can be so dramatic. "Some men," Colby agreed. "Others know how to appreciate what they have." The morning flew by with Colby finding excuses to stop by my desk. He brought me files that could have been emailed, asked for my opinion on matters he could have handled himself, and generally made me feel important and desired. It was intoxicating after days of Bram's cold shoulder. At lunch, we went to a quiet restaurant across town. Colby ordered wine, even though we both had to go back to work. "So tell me," he said, leaning across the small table. "What's really going on at home?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Bram's acting like I committed some terrible crime. All I did was make a joke about our marriage. Couples tease each other. It's normal." "What kind of joke?" I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Just something about our intimacy issues. He's been distant lately, not really present in our relationship. I guess I was frustrated and it came out wrong. In front of his family. It wasn't that bad. Everyone was drinking, having a good time. His mother and sister just don't have a sense of humor." Colby reached across the table and touched my hand. "You deserve better than someone who makes you feel like you have to walk on eggshells." "Do I?" The question came out more vulnerable than I'd intended. "Absolutely. You're brilliant, beautiful, funny. Any man would be lucky to have you." I felt tears prick my eyes. When was the last time Bram had said anything like that to me? "Hey," Colby said softly, "don't let him make you doubt yourself. You know who you are." I squeezed his hand. "Thank you. I really needed to hear that." The afternoon passed in a haze of shared glances and secret smiles. When Colby suggested we grab drinks after work, I almost said yes, but I remembered Ivy's school pickup and reluctantly declined. "Rain check?" he asked. "Definitely." I arrived home to find Bram's car already in the driveway. Inside, he was helping Ivy with her homework at the kitchen table, both of them bent over a math worksheet. "Hi, Mommy." Ivy looked up with a smile. "Daddy came home early to help me with fractions." "How nice," I said, noting that Bram didn't look up from the worksheet. "We're making good progress," he said to Ivy. "Why don't you finish these last two problems while I start dinner?" As Ivy worked, Bram moved efficiently around the kitchen, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator and pantry. I watched him, noting the way he avoided making eye contact with me. "How was work?" I asked, attempting normalcy. "Productive. We're starting a new project. Might require some late nights this week." "What kind of project?" "Infrastructure analysis. Very technical. Probably wouldn't interest you." The dismissal stung. "You don't know what interests me." He paused in his chopping. "You're right, I don't. I'm learning there's a lot I don't know." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that people can surprise you." My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it automatically, another message from Colby about our lunch. When I looked up, Bram was watching me. "Popular day," he observed, echoing his comment from the night before. "Work stuff," I said quickly. "Must be an urgent project to require so much after-hours communication." There was something in his tone that made me defensive. "Not everyone can just shut off at 5 o'clock, Bram. Some of us have responsibilities that extend beyond regular business hours." "I'm sure you do." Ivy looked up from her homework. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" "No, sweetheart," I said quickly. "We're just talking about work." "It sounds like fighting." Bram moved to sit beside her. "Sometimes adults disagree about things, but that doesn't mean we don't love you. You don't need to worry about grown-up stuff." "But I do worry," Ivy said quietly. "You seem sad, Daddy." I watched Bram's expression soften as he looked at our daughter. "I'm not sad when I'm with you, kiddo. You're the best part of my day." The words hit me like a slap. When was the last time he'd said I was the best part of his day? After dinner, Bram disappeared into his study again. I helped Ivy with her bath and bedtime routine, trying to maintain some normalcy for her sake. But I could feel the foundation of our family shifting beneath us, and I didn't know how to stop it. Later, as I sat in our empty bedroom, scrolling through increasingly flirtatious texts from Colby, I told myself that Bram was the one creating this distance. I was just responding to it, but deep down, I knew I was lying to myself, and somewhere in this house, my husband was documenting every lie I told. 2 weeks passed in a strange, cold détente. Bram continued sleeping in the guest room, continued treating me with distant politeness, continued being the perfect father to Ivy while acting like I barely existed. I threw myself into work and my increasingly intense text conversations with Colby. It was a Thursday morning when I first noticed something was wrong with our finances. I'd tried to use our joint credit card for lunch with Colby, a nicer place than usual, and it was declined. "That's weird," I told the server, pulling out my personal card instead. "There must be some mistake." But when I checked our bank account on my phone, I saw that Bram had transferred most of our joint savings into an account I didn't recognize. My hand shook as I scrolled through the transactions. Thousands of dollars, moved systematically over the past week. I called him immediately. "Bram, what the hell did you do to our bank account?" "I secured some assets," he said calmly, "for financial planning purposes. You can't just move our money without telling me. I can move my money wherever I think it's safest. Your money? That's our joint account. And I'm joint on it. I have every legal right to manage our finances as I see fit." I was standing outside the restaurant, Colby waiting inside, and I felt completely blindsided. "Bram, this is insane. You can't just—" "I can, and I did. If you need money for household expenses, let me know and I'll consider it." "Consider it? Who do you think you are?" "I'm someone who's learned to pay attention to details, Lysandra. I suggest you do the same." The line went dead. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at my phone in disbelief. When I went back inside, Colby took one look at my face and ordered me a double wine. "What happened?" "Bram's lost his mind. He moved our money without telling me." "Can he do that?" "Apparently." I drained half the glass in one gulp. "I don't understand what's happening. He's acting like a completely different person." "Maybe he's finally showing you who he really is," Colby suggested. "Some men, when they feel threatened, they get controlling." "Threatened by what?" Colby's hand found mine across the table. "By the possibility of losing you." That afternoon, I tried to concentrate on work, but kept checking my bank balance obsessively. When I got home, I confronted Bram in his study. "We need to talk about the money." He looked up from his computer, where he seemed to have spreadsheets and documents open. "What about it?" "You can't just freeze me out of our finances." "I haven't frozen you out. I've taken precautionary measures." "Precautionary measures against what?" "Against poor financial decisions." I stared at him. "What poor financial decisions? I haven't made any major purchases. Haven't you? His eyes were steady, unblinking. No unusual expenses lately. No dinners at expensive restaurants. No gifts. My mouth went dry. How could he know about lunch with Colby? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure you don't. He turned back to his computer. I've set up a household expense account. You'll have access to reasonable funds for groceries, Ivy's needs, and other necessities. Necessities? Bram, I'm your wife, not your employee. Are you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not sure what you are anymore, Lysandra, but I'm working on figuring it out. That weekend, the social fallout began in earnest. We were supposed to attend a barbecue at our neighbor's house, but when we arrived, the atmosphere was noticeably chilly. People who usually greeted me warmly were polite but distant. Conversations died when I approached groups. I cornered our neighbor Susan by the drinks table. Is everything okay? People seem weird tonight. Susan looked uncomfortable. Well, Judith mentioned what happened at the family barbecue. People are just concerned. Concerned about what? About Bram, about how you've been treating him. I felt heat rise in my face. How I've been treating him. He's the one who's been acting crazy. Lysandra, you humiliated him in front of his family. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's talking about it. It was one comment. It wasn't just one comment. Mara said you've been making digs at him for months, and now people are noticing other things. What other things? Susan glanced around nervously. Like how you flirt with other men. Like how you never have anything nice to say about your husband. Like how you seem to blame him for everything wrong in your life. I stared at her, shocked. That's not... I don't... Maybe you should think about marriage counseling, Susan suggested gently, before it's too late. I walked away from her, my face burning. Across the yard, I could see Bram talking quietly with a group of men, Ivy playing nearby. He looked calm, normal, like the devoted husband and father everyone thought he was. But I was being painted as the villain. That night, after Ivy was asleep, I tried one more time to break through to him. Bram, this has gone far enough. People are talking about us. Are they? He was reading a book in the living room, not even looking up. Yes, and it's not fair. You're making me look like the bad guy. I'm not making you look like anything. I'm just not covering for you anymore. Covering for me? All those times you made cutting remarks about me and I laughed it off. All those times you flirted with other men and I pretended not to notice. All those times you made me feel small and I acted like it was fine. He finally looked up. I'm done pretending. Bram, I never meant... Yes, you did. You meant every word. You just didn't expect consequences. I felt tears starting. I love you. Do you? He closed his book and stood up. Because I'm not sure you even like me, Lysandra. And I'm definitely sure you don't respect me. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you said something kind about me? To me or to anyone else? I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. The silence stretched between us. That's what I thought, he said quietly. I'm going to bed. In the guest room. For how long? I don't know yet. I'm still figuring things out. After he left, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by photos of our family, our life together. In every picture, I was smiling, Bram's arm around me, Ivy between us. We looked happy. When had that become a lie? My phone buzzed with a text from Colby. Thinking about you. Hope you're okay. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Can we meet tomorrow? I really need a friend. Always, came his immediate reply. I'm here for whatever you need. I held the phone to my chest, feeling grateful that someone, at least, still cared about me. In his study, I could hear Bram typing on his computer, the steady rhythm continuing long into the night. 3 weeks later, I was living in a house that felt like a polite prison. Bram had become a ghost who happened to share my address. present but not really there, functional but not engaged. He took care of Ivy, managed the household, went to work, came home, and treated me like a distant acquaintance he was stuck with temporarily. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon, when I discovered he'd changed all his passwords. I'd been trying to log into our shared Netflix account when I realized the password no longer worked. Then I tried his laptop, his tablet, even the home security system. Everything had been locked down. When he came home from work, I was waiting in the kitchen, furious. "You changed all your passwords." "Yes." "Why?" "Privacy." "Privacy from your wife?" He set down his briefcase and looked at me with those calm, cold eyes that had become his default expression. "Privacy from someone I don't trust." The words hit like a physical blow. "You don't trust me?" "Should I?" "Bram, what is wrong with you? We're married. Married people don't lock each other out of their accounts. Married people don't humiliate each other in public either. Married people don't lie about where they're going and who they're with. Married people don't delete text messages they think their spouse might see." My blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" He pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. "Let's see. Lunch at Chez Laurent last Thursday. Coffee at the Riverside Cafe every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the past 3 weeks. Drinks at Murphy's Bar last Saturday when you told me you were having dinner with Jennifer." I stared at him, my mouth dry. How do I know? Because I pay attention now, Lysandra. I pay attention to credit card statements, to mileage on your car, to the way you smile at your phone when you think no one's looking. You're spying on me? I'm protecting myself. From what? From whatever you're planning to do to destroy our family. I felt tears starting, but they were tears of rage, not sadness. I'm not planning to destroy anything. You're the one who's destroying us with this paranoid behavior. Am I? He moved to the kitchen table and picked up a manila folder I hadn't noticed before. Because from where I sit, it looks like you've been working on destroying us for months. He opened the folder and spread out papers, bank statements with highlighted charges, screenshots of social media posts, photos I didn't remember being taken. What is this? Evidence. Evidence of what? Of a pattern, of lies, manipulation, financial deception, and emotional abuse. I stared at the papers, my hand shaking. Emotional abuse? Bram, you're being ridiculous. Am I? Let's review. He picked up what looked like a timeline. March 15th. Told our friends at the Hendersons' party that I was sexually disappointing. March 22nd. Announced to your book club that I was emotionally unavailable. April 3rd. Informed my own mother that I was probably depressed and suggested she stage an intervention. Those were private conversations. Nothing you say about me is private, Lysandra. It all comes back. People talk. He flipped a page. April 10th. Told Ivy that Daddy was going through a phase when she asked why I seemed sad. April 17th. Suggested to our marriage counselor, without consulting me, that I might need individual therapy for intimacy issues. We never went to a marriage counselor. No, but you made the appointment, and you told 3 different people we were going, including your mother, who called to ask if I was having a nervous breakdown. I felt like the room was spinning. You've been documenting our private life. I've been documenting your campaign to rewrite our marriage as my failure. That's not what I was doing, isn't it? He pulled out his phone again. Should we talk about Colby Harker? The name hit me like a slap. What about him? Should we discuss your lunch dates, your text conversations, the way you light up whenever he's around? He's a friend. Is he? Bram's voice remained maddeningly calm. Because friends don't usually send texts like, "You deserve so much better," and "any man would be lucky to have you," and "I can't stop thinking about our conversation." My legs felt weak. How do you know what his texts say? Because you left your phone unlocked on the kitchen counter last week, and because I've learned to pay attention to details. I sank into a chair, feeling trapped. Bram, it's not what you think. What is it then? It's just, he listens to me. He makes me feel valued. And I don't. Not anymore. You've been distant, cold, unavailable. A woman has needs, Bram. Emotional needs. So you decided to get them met by my former friend. Former friend. I ended that friendship 3 weeks ago, right after I realized what was happening. I stared at him. You can't just decide who I'm friends with. I can decide who I'm friends with, and I can decide what I'm willing to tolerate in my marriage. What's that supposed to mean? Instead of answering, he gathered up the papers and put them back in the folder. I'm taking Ivy to my mother's house for the weekend. You can't just take her without discussing it with me. I can take my daughter anywhere I think she'll be safe and happy. Safe? Safe from what? From watching her parents' marriage fall apart, from hearing her mother make jokes about her father's inadequacies, from living in a house where love and respect have been replaced by contempt and lies. I felt panic rising in my chest. Bram, you're scaring me. Good, you should be scared, because this... He gestured around the kitchen. This isn't sustainable. Something has to change. What kind of change? I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. He left the kitchen, and I heard him go upstairs to pack Ivy's overnight bag. When they left 20 minutes later, Ivy hugged me goodbye, but Bram didn't even look at me. I stood in my empty house, surrounded by the life we'd built together, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I wondered if I'd pushed too far. My phone buzzed with a text from Colby. Free for dinner tonight. I have some things I'd like to discuss. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Yes, I think we need to talk. But as I got ready to meet him, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to make a mistake that would change everything. Outside, storm clouds were gathering, and the first drops of rain began to fall. The dinner with Colby was a disaster. He'd chosen a restaurant across town, somewhere we wouldn't be seen by anyone we knew, and his demeanor was completely different from the flirtatious confidence he'd shown for weeks. Look, Lysandra, he said before we'd even ordered appetizers, I think we need to pump the brakes on this whole situation. I stared at him across the table. Pump the brakes? Things are getting complicated. People are talking. I heard through the grapevine that Bram knows about our friendship. So? So I can't afford to be in the middle of a messy divorce situation. It could affect my career, my reputation. You understand? I felt like I'd been slapped. Our friendship could affect your career. Come on, Lysandra. Let's be honest about what this is. You're married, unhappy, looking for attention. I was happy to provide some companionship, but I never intended for things to get serious. Serious? Colby, I thought... You thought what? That I was going to ride in and rescue you from your marriage? He laughed, but it wasn't a kind sound. I'm not looking for that kind of drama. I sat in stunned silence as he continued. Look, you're a great woman, but you come with a lot of baggage. A husband, a kid, a messy situation. I'm 36 years old. If I'm going to settle down, it's going to be with someone who doesn't have all these complications. Complications. Bram's been asking questions at work. Apparently, he knows people in our building. Word is getting around that his wife has been spending a lot of time with me. It's making me look unprofessional. I felt tears stinging my eyes. So that's it. You're just going to abandon me. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm being realistic. You should probably work things out with your husband. Work things out? Colby, he's been treating me like a stranger for weeks. Maybe you should ask yourself why. The words hung between us like an accusation. I looked at this man I'd thought was my friend, my confidant, my escape from a cold marriage, and realized I didn't know him at all. I think I should go, I said quietly. Yeah, probably for the best. Take care of yourself, Lysandra. I drove home through the rain, crying and furious and more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The house was dark and empty when I arrived. No Bram reading in his study, no Ivy's toys scattered around the living room, no sounds of family life. I poured myself a large glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. I wanted to call someone, but who? My mother would just tell me that men were difficult and I should be patient. My friends had been increasingly distant since word of my marital problems had spread. Colby had just abandoned me completely. For the first time in weeks, I really looked at my life, at the choices I'd made, the things I'd said, the way I'd treated the man who'd loved me for 10 years. Had I really been that cruel? Had I really humiliated him the way everyone said I had? I tried to remember the barbecue objectively, without the filter of my own justifications. I'd announced to his family that he'd never get me pregnant again. I'd blamed him for our lack of intimacy. I'd laughed when his mother looked hurt on his behalf, and that was just one evening. What about all the other times? All the small cuts, the casual cruelties, the way I'd made him feel small in front of other people. I was still sitting at the table when I heard Bram's car in the driveway. It was nearly midnight. He came through the front door quietly, probably expecting me to be asleep. "Hi," I said when he appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Hi." He looked surprised to see me. "How was your evening?" "Awful." I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. "How's Ivy?" "She's fine. She's staying at my mother's tonight." He moved to the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of water. "She asked why Mommy and Daddy don't talk anymore." "What did you tell her?" "That sometimes grown-ups need time to think about things." I nodded, fresh tears starting. "Bram, I'm sorry." He paused in the act of opening his water bottle. "For what?" "For everything. For the barbecue. For the way I've been treating you. For Colby." "Ah." He leaned against the counter. "How did that conversation go?" "He doesn't want to see me anymore. Apparently I'm too much drama." "I see. Is that all you're going to say?" "What would you like me to say?" "I don't know. That you're sorry it didn't work out. That you told me so. Something." He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry you're hurt. But you're not sorry it's over." "No." His honesty was like a knife. "Do you hate me?" "No, Lysandra, I don't hate you." "Do you love me?" Another long pause. "I love the woman I married. I'm not sure who you've become." I felt like I was drowning. "Can we fix this? Can we go to counseling, work on things, start over?" "I don't know." "That's not a no." "It's not a yes either." I stood up, moving closer to him. "Bram, please. I know I've made mistakes, but we have a family. We have a life together. That has to count for something." "It does count for something. It counts for a lot. But I can't keep living like this." "Like what?" "Like I'm the enemy in my own home. Like I have to apologize for existing. Like I'm not good enough for my own wife." I reached for his hand, but he stepped back. "You are good enough. You're better than good enough. I was unhappy and I took it out on you instead of dealing with my own problems." "What problems?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know. I felt invisible, I guess. Like you didn't see me anymore." I saw you every day. I just didn't see you seeing me." The words hit home with devastating accuracy. When was the last time I'd really looked at my husband, really listened to him, asked about his day, shown interest in his thoughts and feelings? "I want to try," I said desperately. "I want to be better." "I know you do, but wanting isn't enough anymore." "What is enough?" "I don't know yet." He moved toward the kitchen door. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room again." "For how long?" "I don't know that either." After he left, I sat alone in the kitchen until dawn, thinking about the woman I'd become, and wondering if it was too late to find my way back to the woman I used to be. But it was too late. In his study, Bram was making final preparations for a conversation that would end our marriage forever. 3 days later, he served me with divorce papers. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking my morning coffee and scrolling through job listings. I'd realized I needed to think practically about my future when the doorbell rang. A woman in a business suit stood on my porch with an official-looking envelope. Lysandra Vole? Yes? You've been served. I stared at the envelope in my hands, my name typed neatly on the front, and for a moment I couldn't process what was happening. Inside were divorce papers, custody documents, and a detailed financial settlement proposal. Everything was meticulously organized, professionally prepared, and completely devastating. Bram was asking for primary custody of Ivy, citing my pattern of emotional instability and inappropriate relationships. He was dividing our assets down to the penny, giving me exactly half of everything we'd built together. He was even offering to pay for my moving expenses. It was fair, legal, and utterly final. I found him in his study, calmly packing files into boxes. You're divorcing me. Yes. You couldn't talk to me first, couldn't warn me. I tried talking to you for months, Lysandra. You weren't interested in listening. So you just gave up. Just like that. He stopped packing and looked at me. I didn't give up. I protected myself and our daughter from further damage. Further damage? Do you know what Ivy told my mother last weekend? She said she's worried that Mommy doesn't love Daddy anymore because Mommy is always mean to Daddy. The words hit me like a physical blow. I was never mean to her. No, but you were mean to me. In front of her. Constantly. I sank into the chair across from his desk. I didn't realize. That's the problem. You didn't realize. You didn't think about how your words affected me, or Ivy, or our family. You just said whatever you felt like saying and expected everyone else to deal with the consequences. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I don't want to fix it anymore. His voice was quiet but firm. I want to move on. With someone else. With dignity. With self-respect. With a life where I don't have to apologize for existing. I looked around his study, at the boxes of files, at the computer where he'd documented every cruel word I'd said, every lie I'd told, every way I'd failed as a wife. You planned this. I prepared for it. There's a difference. For how long? Since the barbecue, since the night you humiliated me in front of my family and then laughed about it. One night, you're ending our marriage over one night. I'm ending our marriage over a pattern of behavior that culminated in that night. The affair with Colby was just confirmation that I was right to protect myself. It wasn't an affair. What would you call it? I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. What would I call it? Emotional infidelity, a friendship that had crossed lines, a betrayal that I'd justified because I felt neglected. I call it the end, Bram said quietly. I call it the final proof that this marriage is over. 6 months later, our divorce was finalized. Bram got primary custody of Ivy. I got half our assets and a small apartment across town. He was unfailingly polite during the proceedings, never vindictive, never cruel. He simply presented the facts and let them speak for themselves. At the final hearing, as we signed the papers that would end our 10-year marriage, he looked at me one last time. I hope you find what you're looking for, Lysandra. What if what I was looking for was you? Then you should have treated me like I mattered. I watched him walk away, dignified and calm, while I sat alone in the courthouse hallway with the wreckage of my life spread around me like broken glass. The woman who had laughed at her husband's humiliation at a family barbecue was gone. In her place was someone who finally understood that actions have consequences, that words have power, and that some mistakes can't be undone. I had thought I was winning that night at the barbecue. I had thought I was teaching him a lesson, putting him in his place, showing everyone who was really in control. Instead, I had lost everything that mattered. And the worst